Love finances the other F word and want to support the show? Become a patron by going to patreon.com/FTOFW. You'll get special features, a shout out on the air, and early releases. Or if you prefer, pick up some merchandise at financestheotherfword.com.
As fantastic a CFP as MelO is, and as wonderful an attorney as I am, please do note that anything said in our show are our opinions alone and are not meant to be taken as financial or legal advice.
Welcome to Finances, the Other F Word, a Gen Xer podcast for musicians and music lovers, where we discuss money and music without all the pretentious bullshit. Here are your hosts, Zoe Terry, attorney at large, and MelO, certified financial planner and author of Finances, the Other F Word. Listener discretion is advised.
Hey guys, welcome to Finances the Other F Word, and we finally have Zoe back.
Woohoo!
Woo! From England. How was your trip to England?
It was epic, Mel.
I saw what you did.
You saw what I did there. I got to see my lovely grandma. Hi, Mad Nan. I know you listen. It was her 90th birthday, and she just spoke to us both before we started and said, try not to swear. So Mel kind of said, what did you say? We'll do our best.
We will do our best. I'm not I can't commit to an adorable little grandmother and lie to her. No. I just can't do that. No. I can be like, that's like asking me not to breathe. It's not really going to ever happen.
Yeah, it's not. Mm-mm. Notice I didn't say anything to her.
Yeah, she just turned the phone towards me, and then I had to be like, oh, Grandma, no. We'll
do our best.
Queen's English and all that bullshit. So this is going to be an interesting couple episodes. So this is what happened. Zoe and I recorded an episode called KimYe on February 22nd of this year. So literally 2/22/22. That's when we recorded it. And I never aired it. And I never edited it. I never did anything with it. I sat it on a shelf, and there's a couple reasons why. Number one, because it was, I think, the next month in March when the Roe versus Wade decision leaked. And so we just went hard left, and we're like, let's figure out what the fuck is going on with that bullshit first. And then also, I really was hesitant because I felt like in the episode I was raging. And I know I rage a lot, but
I was going to say, and it was different how?
Yeah, I was raging, but I was raging in a different manner. And that being said, I edited that episode this morning because this episode is going to lead into that episode, which is the reason why I decided to pull it off the shelf. And for you guys out there, I actually took out a good part of my rage. And I learned something, or I realized something as I was editing it, the reason why I never wanted to air that episode. And one of them is because I realized that it was a very triggering episode for me, which is really weird because it wasn't in an obvious triggering way that I would have recognized. So I wanted to kind of set you guys up for you. Zoe and I today are going to talk about Kanye's interview with Tucker Carlson, which I'm
rolling my eyes as far back into my head as they will go.
And this is what's so great, you guys, is that if you watch this on YouTube, I notice this when I edit. But when I'm talking, I look in the camera because I'm trying to, I want to make eye contact with you. So I see Zoe moving around, but I don't see what Zoe's doing. So a lot of times I say stuff and she mouths stuff to you that I don't realize she's doing, or she doesn't like something I say, or whatever. So it's very interesting when I go back and edit to watch what Zoe is doing while I'm editing the actual show because she's doing all kinds of crazy shit. So if you get a chance, check out Finances the Other F Word YouTube channel because her face work is pretty impressive.
Face work.
Yes.
I like it.
So this episode is going to talk about Kanye West's interview with Tucker Carlson and talk about him wearing the shirt White Lives Matter. And then I'm going to bring out the lost episode of KimYe that we did in February. So this is either going to be a 3-part breakup series or a 4-part, but I'm just going to drop them all at the same time in little digestible amounts because if you're like me and it's close to Halloween, you're listening to a whole bunch of horror podcasts, which I do all the time anyway, but they're really active right now, so we might end up getting bumped down your list. But I want you guys to listen to it because upon listening to it, I realized that there really was a lot of good stuff there. Now, it was recorded in February of this year, and I I was coming off COVID and I was sick as a dog still. So I sound like absolute dog shit.
Were you coughing still?
I was coughing a little bit, and my nose was really plugged, and I was losing my train of thought constantly. So usually I edit out as best I can Zoe and I's ums. But this time, I literally dropped probably like 3 to 4 minutes off of the show and just my ums because I could not remember what the fuck I was saying. So I kept stopping and you would be like, and so I had to edit those out. And so let me tell you, first of all, just real quick, because I really want to hear about the Tucker Carlson interview. But I want to tell you guys why I kept this one on the shelf for as long as I did. And truth be told, if Kanye hadn't done anything controversial again, which is, I think that's batshit to think that that's never going to happen, it probably would have stayed in there until I was out of desperation and needed to put up an episode for you guys. For the record, I've never been beaten. I've never been in bad, abusive relationships. I mean, I've been in relationships that we clearly should not be in anymore, where we're both miserable as fuck and we know it's over and we need to part ways. Right? But I haven't been in a situation where I've been physically beaten, except one time where it didn't get super physical, but it got enough to piss me completely off. And on the Roe versus Wade episode, Zoe and I talked about pregnancies that we had terminated. Well, this guy I'm going to tell you the story about was that guy that I got pregnant from. The loser I was telling you about. So this is him. This is the story. This is the part of my life that I was in. So I had just broken up with a guy, or he probably dumped me because I was like clinging on to him for dear life for some fucking reason. And I ended up hooking up with this total loser asshole. And he was living in my apartment, working at a Sherry's restaurant, which are prevalent in Washington State. If you've ever been in the Northwest, you know exactly what I'm talking about, as a cook. And he was just a fucking loser. I was just miserable and I was hurt and I was just in a really, really bad place in my life. And him and I didn't have anything in common at all, but we were in an epic fight. And I don't know if I've ever told you this story, Zoe.
I don't know that you have.
Yeah. So we were and I didn't think it was relevant. And the thing that's so funny is when you listen to the KimYe episode, at the very end of it, I allude to a stalker ex I had, but that's a different story. So this is two separate stories. So this is the guy in Washington. Well, actually, they're both from Washington, but this guy. So we were in the middle of an epic fight. I'm talking about like trailer park fight, where I had just gotten out of the shower. I was wearing a satin nightgown. Don't get too turned on, because I just got out of the shower, not because of, any other reason. But I mean, it feels nice on your skin. So I'm wearing one of those. And we are just in a full-blown fight. I don't know what it is. He had done something, or he had lied to me about doing something, and we were just fucking going at it. And I, of course, did the fucking train, and I know listeners out there, you can relate to it because you've been in these fights. So I'm doing the train wreck thing where I'm gathering all his shit, right? And so it was after Valentine's Day, and he had given me this coffee mug. First of all, fuck coffee mugs, okay? Don't give him
Valentine's Day, but fuck, giving you a coffee mug for Valentine's Day.
Right, exactly. So, and it had like some stupid ass teddy bear in it. And anybody who really knows me knows I do not do stuffed animals, right? So it was like this stupid coffee mug that said something, I love somebody, or like, I don't even know if it said I love you, because we didn't do that, because no. And because I didn't love him. He might have loved me. I don't really care, but I didn't love him. So I'm gathering all his shit and I'm screaming. And at this time I lived in a 1-bedroom, 2nd floor apartment in Washington State, and I'm screaming at him, get all your shit. And I'm grabbing all his stuff, and I grab one of the, little plastic bags they have at the grocery store, and I start putting in it, and I'm like, get the fuck out of here, whatever. And he picked me up by the back of my arms. Like, he grabbed me with his hands on the back of my arms, and he threw me back, right? And I've never had a guy lay hands on me before. And we needed to break up, okay? And we did right after this, as a matter of fact. So ladies, if a guy touches you, get the fuck out of the relationship. But he just grabbed me and fucking tossed me. And I fucking flipped out. Like all of a sudden we just escalated to the extremes. And I was like, what the fuck? And so I'm losing my shit. And then I'm like, and I'm getting all his shit together. And then he comes over to me, and I have the plastic bag in my hand, and it has this stupid coffee cup in it. And he's in my face, and he's threatening me after he's already tossed me. So I'm holding the bag, and I start winding it up in my hand. Because what I've done now is I brought the coffee cup that's at the bottom of the bag, and I've been winding it up until I have the handle of the coffee mug in my hand right now. But it's still in the bag. So in the state of Washington, if there's a domestic dispute and somebody's called, somebody has to go to jail. That's what happens. Somebody's going to have to go to jail. Male, female, somebody's going to jail. And so I have this coffee mug in my hand, and he's a little taller than me. He's not super taller than me. And he's looking down at me, like trying to be intimidating, whatever. And he's pissed and I'm pissed. And I knew that I was about to swing this mug at his temple. Like I knew it. Like I was like, I'm about to knock you the fuck out, asshole. Like this is what I have in my hand. You were going down and I'm going to cut you. Like I'm going to beat your ass, right? So he's standing over me. If you guys are on YouTube, you can get visuals of this. He's standing over me and I have the coffee mug in my hand and I go back and I'm like, Mel, if you hit him in the temple, this is going to get ugly. This is going to really escalate. And so I just told him, I said, you need to back the fuck up. And he must have either he saw the coffee mug or he saw I was serious or he realized shit was getting out of hand and he stepped away. And then I just started bawling my face off. So I collapsed on the floor, like in the fetal position, but on my knees, like sobbing like a crazy person, just completely sobbing. In between here, he had called one of our mutual friends, which is how I had met him, to come get him because he was a loser. He didn't have a car, right? Because I could really pick him back then. And I still stand by my decision to get an abortion. If I could go back in time, I'd still do it. And if it happened and I was in the same relationship right now, I'd still do it. So again, no apologies. So I'm sitting on the floor on my knees, sobbing and collapsing and crying. And then he comes over to comfort me. Like, oh, I'm so sorry. And, blah, 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 whatever. And I stood up and so I'm squatted, like I'm kind of like squatted down. And then he's squatting down kind of over me, trying to comfort me. And I stood up and in one fluid motion, I pushed him back and I stood up. So I'm standing over him and I fucking decked him. And it felt great, but I'm sure I didn't do any damage at all. But I was like, or maybe it was a slap. Maybe I didn't hit him. All I know is that I fucking swung in some way, open hand, closed hand, something was swinging and I fucking knocked him back where he fell on his back. Not on his back, on his butt. I don't want to overexaggerate, like, because he was still kind of squatting, right? So when the momentum pushed him over. And then I was like, get the fuck out of my house. Like then fucking trailer park southern level goes nuts. And I will be editing that name out. Pulls up. I'm trying hard not to say names. So he pulls up and I run. So the guy I'm dating is leaving with, like, I don't even know if he left any of his stuff. So I'm running down, so embarrassing. I'm running down my steps in a satin nightgown with, like, I think I probably had a tit hanging out, right? But I had shoes on because I'm weird about feet. Mm-hmm. And they were probably house shoes, whatever. And I'm running down the stairs screaming at him. He goes to get in our mutual friend's truck and he has no idea what's going on. He's like, he's never seen me like this. He has no idea what he came into. He just knows that somebody told him, come get me right the fuck now. And he just walked into a shit show. As the guy I'm dating is getting into the car, I haul up and kick the door so hard that I fucking like slammed it into his leg. Then he gets out, they leave, right? Okay. So like a day or two, so he's back at his parents' house. A day or two later, I go to his parents' house. I go to his parents' house with all his shit. And he's like, hey, he's like, I'm really sorry. Things got out of hand, yada, yada, yada. He's like, can you forgive me? Can we start over? And I pulled down my shirt sleeve and I had 5 fingerprints under my arms where he had picked me up and thrown me. And I said something and he just went inside. That was the last I ever saw him. So that's one. Now let me tell you another horrible bird. These all are a reason why this episode didn't go air. And now with this context and the context I have now, you're going to understand when you listen to KimYe why I was losing my shit so bad on a lot of stuff. So then there's another guy. He was the guy that I dated before I moved down to Vegas. And I gave him 3 options when we broke up. Or when I was moving. I'm like, we can either see you when I see you and we'll fuck and have a good time, or we can break up, or we can do long distance. Thinking there's no way he'd do long distance, but he wanted to do long distance. And I loved him. I did. Whew, I haven't said that in a while. That makes me so uncomfortable. And so I loved him. And so I'm like, okay, cool, whatever. So as I was in Vegas, I was trying to make friends. And for those of you who have ever picked up and relocated to a individual location, then you know that you have no friends. You got to start over, right? So I'm trying to make friends and stuff like that. And it started out first as, oh, we want to talk all the time because we miss each other. Then it developed into this crazy thing. And I haven't told you the story either, Zoe. Mm-mm. This crazy thing where I had to call him throughout the day And it wasn't like he said you have to call me throughout the day, but sometimes people say stuff to you. And if you've ever been in a shit relationship, people say stuff to you that changes your behavior. Now, yes, part of that's your fault and part of it's them, right? I mean, you're both to blame. Anyway, so before I realize it, I'm like going out to lunch with a coworker and I call him on the way to the restaurant. And then I think he calls me sometime when we're eating. It is an hour lunch, you guys. And then I have to call him on the way back from the restaurant. And she looked at me and she said, hey, she's like, why do you have to talk to him so much? And I was like, what are you talking about? And I literally was oblivious to it. So then that was my first wake up call. And shortly after this whole thing, about 2 or 3 years later, we had a teller at the branch that I worked at who had a completely domineering boyfriend or husband to the point where he got her fired because he kept showing up. He was beating her. And he kept calling her constantly, and the supervisors would get on the phone and say, stop calling her, she's at work, to the point where they fired her or she quit. And he's a fucking douchebag, and Josie and I talk about it all the time. But so I tried to pull her aside, like, dude, you got to leave him, blah, blah, blah. But I think she had a kid with him at that point. And so I hope she's really good. So this guy and I that we were dating long distance in Washington, he had a thing. This is where it's going to be a hard left, one of those little plot twists with Mel. He had a thing for threesomes. Okay, like he thought threesomes were hot, or he thought the idea of him watching, we get very personal on this show, him watching, like basically at the time, like me having sex with another dude, he think would be very hot. Now, for the record.
So we're talking 2 dudes, not 2 girls.
Yeah, like he wanted to watch me had sex with a dude. I think it's like kind of a porn, like cuckolding or cockholding or whatever now, but kind of like that where they're demasculated in a way if they watch their woman have sex with another dude. He was very into that. Now, listeners, I know what you're all thinking. The answer is no. I never did that with him, okay? I never did that with him. But he was very turned on by it. So we were having an epic argument on the phone. And I was just like, you know what? I need to go wash my hair. This is bullshit. You're on some bullshit. So I'm going to get off the phone. So I hang up the phone. I throw the phone on the bed. I go into the shower. I wash my hair. I come out. My phone's on the bed. I pick up my phone. And this was way before the Apple smartphone. This was like the little boop, boop. We still had the numbers and you had to like hit 3 times to get a letter to
do
text.
A text message. It took you like half an hour to do one.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I pick it up and I have like literally like 10 to 11 missed calls from this guy that I was dating. And I'm like, what the fuck is he on? So I call him back and I'm like, dude, I was like, you called me like 11 times. And he's like, yeah, he's like, who's there? And I'm like, what are you talking about? And this is after physical guy, by the way, by about 3 years, 2.5 years, something like that. And I said, what are you talking about? And he goes, and this is really taking a lot of time. So I'll put it in the disclosure, you guys, I'll put the time frame where if you just want to hear the stories, you can bypass all this stuff. But this leads up to it. So I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, I heard somebody there. And I said, dude, I went in and I washed my hair. There's nobody here. And he's like, well, I know there's somebody there. Why are you lying to me? And I'm like, dude, so then here goes Mel, like another fucking, I go off the deep end. So I run around my condo screaming at the top of my lungs, is there anybody fucking here? I'm spazzing out, right? I'm fucking losing my shit. I'm over this guy. So I'm like screaming. And then I start breaking down and I'm sobbing and I'm bawling because I'm like how this guy I'm dating, we're supposed to be in love. He's accusing me of like fucking some dude, which I got revenge. I'll explain why. Fucking some dude and all this stuff. And I'm just sobbing on the phone because like, I don't know what to do. As I'm sitting there and like calming down and still starting to sob, he was like, this is what he said, you guys. If I've ever wanted to punch a man, this was the time, even more so than the other time. So he goes and I'm calming down everything. And he was like, he's like, look, I'm really sorry. He said, to be honest with you, he said, I thought that you were having sex with a guy and hadn't hung up the phone, and I thought it was hot and I masturbated to it.
Okay, and then got mad at you.
Listeners, so I said, what? I'm going to back up. I was like, what? I was like, you? And of course, motherfucker. Like, and then I fucking lost my shit. That was it. I was done. I was like, you fucking piece of shit, asshole, son of a, like I was out. I think he had hung up on me, whatever. So then the next day, he calls me and I'm coming back from lunch or I'm going to work. I don't know, but somehow he calls me and he says something and I'm like, I can't do this anymore. This is ridiculous. And he's like, well, then why don't we just break up? I said, sounds good to me. Bye. Click. Done. That was it. We broke up. You guys, he lost his shit. And this is the guy I referred to in the KimYe episode. He lost his shit. He called me at work I had never had a guy do this. I had to change my number. This is the only time I've ever had to do this because I couldn't block him because you're going to find out why in a minute. So he called me and called me and called me. He called me at work. He called my cell phone. He called my home phone because this was back in the day. So literally we broke up and the next night I fucked somebody else and it was wonderful sex, by the way, because fuck that guy. And so I was like, I was done with him. Well, this was back in the day, you guys, like 2003, when we had AIM Instant Messenger. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Did you have it? Okay. So it was yellow. It was America Online Instant Messenger, but it was the shit. And you could instant message people that were online. And this was way before Apple, way before text, way before any of the social media platforms. And so he had, we would aim back and forth. And I was just like, and he just fucking would not stop. Bing, bing, bing. He called me so much that I had to unplug my home phone. And then he called me so much I had to turn off my cell phone. So he kept calling my cell phone. So I turned off my cell phone. Then you guys, exactly every 15 minutes he would call me. He would call me. My house phone was going nuts all hours of the night. I finally unplugged it and then my cell phone would be off. But then my mother would be trying to call me and she's freaking out because she can't get a hold of me. So through AIM, I'm like, leave me the fuck alone. We're fucking done. You told me you wanted to break up and we did. Fucking peace out, bro. So then what he started doing was he started just changing names. So he changed names. And so constantly when I was on AIM and I was trying to talk to my friends in Washington State, he'd be coming at me because you couldn't, back in the day, it wasn't like if you were online, people could just message you. It wasn't like you could, block somebody or you knew who the people were. It was elementary. And so he's just changing usernames and he's just coming up with different usernames. Ping, 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 pinging me. And then finally I'm catching on. I'm like, dude, what the fuck? Like, leave me the fuck alone. So I changed my phone number. Then he really, really goes off the deep end. And before that, he was sending me crazy texts like, oh, I'm going to see you in 15 minutes. I'll be at your house. And he was in Washington State, just fucking creepy shit and be like, I know you've been fucking guys since you were in Vegas, which I hadn't. And so he's sending me all this stuff. So then he's aiming me all this stuff. And then the very last thing that he sent me is, I swear you guys, I remember it. He said, I'm a cute little dog. See my glasses? Don't I look good with my glasses? Want to watch me run? See how I run. Now, the reason why I'm telling you that is because when I go through the Instagram posts of Kanye West has crazy, erratic shit that he was posting when he was basically stalking publicly Kim Kardashian. And as I'm editing, all of these memories are triggering. And I'm like, oh my God, that's why I never wanted this episode to air between, the KimYe episode. And then when Facebook came around, he still contacted me and then I'd block him. But then this was before they could still, like, there was a time where they could still message you even though you weren't friends on Facebook and it didn't go into a separate folder. And he got remarried and he still would message me with this profile picture of him and his wife. And finally, when I changed my name, like now, I don't think he can find me, but I'm sure at some point he will look me up and there's enough ties to me that he will find me again. And I hope you listen to this episode, and I hope you rot in hell, you fucking bastard. So pleasant. So those are the reasons why KimYe never aired. So understand when you guys, after you get through this episode and you listen to the KimYe ones, understand why if you hear me raging, why I'm raging, because I didn't realize it at the time, but that was 100% why. And we cover a lot of the tie-ins on KimYe to a lot of this different stuff that was happening then that's still happening now. And it's interesting to listen to a time capsule and then look and know that what we're recording today is in hindsight of all of that stuff we talked about. So with that, Kanye came out during a fashion week, I guess, with the shirt that said White Lives Matter. The lady next to him who was wearing the shirt was Lauryn Hill's daughter and Bob Marley's granddaughter, which caused a whole big stir. And we'll talk about how Zoe and I feel about that here in a minute. But in the meantime, after this controversy, Kanye went on Tucker Carlson on Fox, and he had a wonderful interview that Zoe is going to tell us about right now.
Yes, and first of all, let me just say I feel like I deserve a medal or a trophy or some kind of prize for having spent 40 minutes of my life watching A, Tucker Carlson,
Yeah.
B, Fox News, C, Yay, whatever. Okay, so please give me something as a prize. But yes,
I'm going to give you a high five and a good slap on your ass. Psh! I'll give you a slap on your ass after we're all done.
Okay, thank you. I'm not sure that really compensates me for what I've had to go through, but I'll take it right now.
And after your wind is done, because of course she has wind again. So I'm not going to fucking
Wind
hit that
again?
bomb.
It's a daily occurrence.
I know,
There's
it's
nothing I can
disturbing
do
as
about
hell.
it. Anyway, so yes, it was painful on lots and lots of levels. Just to see, for a start, just to see Tucker Carlson, makes me gag just thinking about him.
He's not great.
Fawning all over KimYe was just so sickening. And I read a couple of articles afterwards too, where they pointed out it's funny how now KimYe is Fox's BFF, because it wasn't that long ago, that many years ago, that Bill O'Reilly on Fox News was calling him a dopey little rapper. But now, of course, because he's a Christian evangelist, I think that's how Tucker referred to him. Now he's just like, oh yeah, he speaketh the truth, which is just frightening. So yeah, it's face-to-face interview. Tucker Carlson doesn't really get half of what he's saying because none of us can, and he's just kind of staring, and then every so often going, yeah, I understand. Oh yeah, and you're like, dude, you don't understand because nobody understands. And KimYe's just rambling on, and there are little like moments of clarity where he'll say something that is kind of genuinely true and important, but then he'll twist it and turn it and then go off on a tangent. And it was one of the most bizarre things I've ever seen. So I just made a few notes of some of the, I was going to say highlights, lowlights of what he was saying, just to give you an idea. But it really is, don't waste your time, but I did. So at one point he's comparing himself and his greatness to of all people, Tonya Harding. Yep, that skater who, bashed in her competitor's knee. He compares himself, his greatness, to like her doing one of her axles or whatever, one of her maneuvers. And I'm just like, of all the friggin', icons in the world, he chose Tonya Harding. I mean, he's so, what's the word? Like blind. Just
blinders on.
Yeah, just he just has no idea. So that was, already I'm going like, what? And then he talks a bit about his mother and just little throwaway comments where he says she was an actress, so of course she was a liberal. And he talks about how, she took him away from his father, and that happens a lot. And you're like, really? That happens a lot. A lot of women choose to have no assistance, no financial help from their men, and that happens a lot as far as he's concerned, which of course, what he's really talking about is himself. Like I said, he rants and raves and goes from pillar to post. It's just so bizarre. At one point he talks about Lizzo and about her losing 10 pounds, but just how the mainstream media wants to encourage everyone to be unhealthy and fat, because it's just another way of them killing black people. And Tucker's like, and why do you think that is? He's just so blind. He's so ridiculously stupid. I think the message is body positivity, and that we can't all look like Kim, so let's embrace ourselves. I don't think there's anyone out there going, eat as much as you want, get as fat as you like. Mm-hmm. It's okay. I mean, but no, that's the mainstream's media's way of killing us, but more specifically killing black people by encouraging them to get fat. So that was another very interesting little snippet from him. Then he talked about, of course, Planned Parenthood. And he's a big pro-lifer, to the point, I didn't see this, but I read on an article that he was wearing a lanyard around his neck with an ultrasound picture on it.
Okay, so I didn't know that he was immensely pro-life, but apparently at some point he did tell everybody on social media that Kim, when she found out she was pregnant, she almost aborted one of her kids. I don't know, maybe it was the first one, because I think that's the only one she carried anyway. But I did not know that he was so pro-life. I swear I had no idea.
That's why Fox News loves him. right? But even that, though, was ridiculous. He's not thought through. He's just like, so yeah. Well, first of all, Planned Parenthood was started by KKK. Didn't know that.
We covered the KKK.
Yes.
And that never came up in my research. That's fascinating.
No. But you know, I mean, these are things that just Kanye West knows, you know? It's his facts. So, of course, yeah, he decries Planned Parenthood. And really, why don't we, if we're going to have Planned Parenthood, have a building opposite where women, once they choose to have that baby, instead of going through one of the most difficult decisions, as we've talked about, any woman makes, that they can just go drop the baby off at this building opposite. I'm thinking, it makes no sense. And then what happens to the babies? What happens then? Because he has no idea of what the foster care adoption situation is in this country. What, we're just going to stack up children in this building and what? Hope that we can find parents for them? He just spouts out the most ridiculous things.
And on that tip, real quick, when we talked about
just the tip,
when we talked about the Roe versus Wade episode, there was a statistic I had, and I can't remember. It was anywhere between, I think it was way higher than this, but it was between 60 and like 88% that once a woman delivers a baby, she keeps it, even if her situation is still the same, which is what she was trying to avoid in the first place. So that is flawed because the numbers tell us otherwise. So,
and talking of numbers, let's do some Kanye West numbers, shall we? Because this is the thing. It's just to give him airtime is ridiculous, and it's just a waste of time. But it's also, I think, quite dangerous. He was spouting off one point how he doesn't believe in doctors. Don't need doctors. Nurses are all right, I guess, but we don't need doctors. What now? But even scarier, the disinformation that Fox is allowing him to put out there. At one point, he says 50% of black deaths in New York City are a result of abortion. It's not true. So do you know what I mean? Why? How can they, with a straight face, and Tucker Carlson barely kept a straight face at times, how can they let this dude have airtime and not at least it's Fox. I was going to say fact check it, but it's Fox. Why would they? And at one point, he's bashing on about whatever he's bashing on about, because I found it very hard at times to even listen to him. He says to Tucker, have I gone Alex Jones enough yet for you? And Tucker, I'm going to call him Cucker. Cucker laughs and says, oh, it's okay if you do. What the fuck? You're talking about a man who spread information that Sandy Hook was a hoax, and has already been, already had a verdict against him in one trial, and we're waiting for the verdict in the most recent defamation trial. So, but Tucker Carlson's going, oh, it's okay if you do. No, it's not. No, it's not okay if you do, just because you like what he's saying because it matches your agenda. Another point, Kanye is talking about Kim and says, with a straight face, Kim is the most influential woman on the planet. Really now? Is she? Of all the women in the world, Kim Kardashian is the most influential. God help us if that is true. And talking of God, that is another one of his pervasive themes throughout this rant, is how God channels ideas through Kanye West. Okay. So it's all ordained by God, and it's just, that was another like sickening continuation of his themes right there. And like I said, occasionally he would make good points about black men being more likely to be killed by police officers and stuff like that. But then he would continue it on with that's how they're trying to kill us, with the food and with the media and you're just like, oh God, just stop. But he can't, and Tucker was quite happy to let him carry on. And a really good friend of mine, Glenn, is from Chicago and says that he is not liked in Chicago at all.
Really?
No. I mean, he was back in the day, but now he said to the point that people who like R. Kelly still don't like Kanye. He's just,
They seem both pretty awful, but...
Yeah, but even R. Kelly, people who like R. Kelly will draw the line at Kanye West. That's how bad it is. Oh, and we haven't even got to him explaining about why he designed and wore the White Lives Matter t-shirt. And he said at first that he thought it was just a joke, but he's just blind to the meaning and the disrespect that a lot of people felt. I mean, I read that people like left the show and various others walked out of the show when he was wearing it. But he's got, no regrets, no remorse. That's just another way of the liberals trying to crush him, bring him down. That's my review. Mm. And really, do not waste any of your life watching it. Although I guess, are we even going to put the link to it? Do we have to?
No, I mean, we don't. You can Google it or you can YouTube it. It's really easy. So the thing that's so interesting is a lot of because Zoe hasn't listened to the KimYe episode because I just edited it this morning. So she doesn't remember all the stuff we talked about, nor had I until I started editing it. And a lot of the things that she just touched on, God, about him, talking about God, I talked to that point about him talking about Kim, about the things that he was saying and how he was just saying stuff that didn't make any sense. We actually talked about back in February when he was very active on Instagram trying to get Kim back. And he hasn't really changed anything at all. And it's so interesting to listen to what we said back then and then know what we're going to talk about today. And the same themes that Zoe just alluded to in this interview are exactly the same things we were talking about during the whole KimYe episode. I've read snippets of the interview. In the interview, he talks about how, Kim was like posing, and I know what picture he's talking about in particular, and it wasn't a good picture, I gotta be honest with you. She had posed in a pair of, I think it was acid wash jeans, so first of all, that's a problem.
Never good.
Yeah, and she had the jeans pulled down under her ass, but she was still kind of wearing them, and then she had like a sports bra, jean jacket thing on, but she had a blonde wig on, and she had her eyebrows dyed blonde, which looked real. That's why I had a problem with it. I was like, it just looks weird. And people were pissed off at her. I can't believe this, she's 40 something years old and her kids are going to see this, blah, blah, blah. But then what was so interesting was that the post of hers right below it was another set of photos of her with her tits and ass out. And everybody was talking about how wonderful it was. But the reason why is because they did not like the way she looked in the most recent photo. So all these trolls came out talking about how she's 40-something-year-old woman with her ass out and this, that, and the other thing. So in the interview, Kanye West alludes to, she has her ass out and, with 4 black children at home. But if you go back to February, when we recorded that episode, which you'll hear after we're done with this episode, if you're so inclined to binge listen, that he praised how wonderful and hot she was. And every time she posted a picture, he would post hearts and flames and fire. And he would talk about how hot his wife was. And he loved it. He loved it. And when he was actively stalking her, he thought it was the fucking best thing in the world. And at the time, obviously, when we recorded this, he was fucking Julia Fox, or he was just done with Julia Fox, who is another train wreck. She didn't even come on my radar until I was like, who's Julia Fox? Oh, she's somebody that fucked Kanye. But he's like, and she was with Pete Davidson at the time, which of course now we know that they've broken up. But he was so just over the top, and the God thing and all of this stuff that's going on. And he started to show a little bit of his craziness in the Instagram post that I read that he had done from an account that captures Kanye West deleted Instagrams, because even at that time he was starting to get not a whole bunch of pushback, but he was starting to get pushback that he deleted all of his stuff. So I found an account that had a good portion of his deleted texts, his deleted posts and everything. So the White Lives Matter thing. So it came up in my feed because I don't do social media. But it came up in my reading feed and I was like, oh, okay. And so when I saw it, this is what I immediately thought. I honestly didn't think anything of it. I'm like, okay, Kanye West is an idiot. He's doing some stuff to try to stir the pot, and I let it go. Like, I honestly didn't think it would be anything farther from that. Then he apparently goes after the Vogue editor, who is a black lady, and he goes after her because she said something, and he goes after her. And then I guess Hailey Bieber, whatever. She says something and he goes after her. And then this cycle, it's interesting because if you've been following the White Lives Matter t-shirt thing and all of these feuds that he's had with everybody, and you listen to the KimYe episode, he was doing the exact same tactics that he was employing in February to win Kim back is exactly the same thing that's happening, but now his focus is no longer Kim. So I didn't think anything of it. I didn't know who the other chick was with him that was wearing the White Lives Matter, but it just kept coming up. And of course, then you read it and then more comes up, right? Because now you've shown interest in a topic. And a lot of the black media people or people in general were saying that it was, inciting violence and all that stuff. And I'll be really honest with you. At first, it was just like he's being an asshole, but it didn't register to me. I'm not ever going to wear that shirt. So yesterday I was having lunch with Josita, my friend, and she's black, and we've been friends for fucking ever. And I was like, hey, Josita, I'm going to be talking tomorrow about White Lives Matter. What are your feelings on that? And she's like, what happened? And so I explained to her, because she watches TV. She doesn't read, news. She doesn't take in content like that. I explained to her the whole thing, and she's like, psh. She's like, he's just being a fucking idiot. And literally, she dismissed it as that. She didn't go any farther in it. She's like, but at one point, I guess, in the Tucker Carlson interview, KimYe had said that Black Lives Matter was a scam. Now, there has been investigations into the founders of Black Lives Matter, because there is a questioning about they either have too much money from it or maybe they're misappropriating funds. So I haven't dug into that. I don't know about that part. But what I will tell you, listeners, is go back to our nonprofit series, where we dug into the Mormon Church, we dug into the Catholic Church, we dug into Salvation Army, we dug into all these nonprofits that are getting rich off of their nonprofit status. So even though I'm not saying if that even true, and again, I haven't researched it, I don't know if Black Lives Matter, if they did do something crooked with the finances, I haven't researched it, but let's remind everyone that a lot of nonprofits, and a lot of them religious, have done the same thing, right? So that was my reaction, honestly, to the t-shirt, until everybody was enraged. And so so Zoe and I haven't pre-planned this. We haven't talked about this at all, because I like to have candid conversation. So I want to know what was your feeling on it, if anything?
Well, for a start, I knew nothing about it. I've just got back from England, and so I've just been, jet lagged, getting back to work, everything else. So it wasn't until you texted me that that's what we were going to do for the show. I didn't know what you were talking about. Now, when I clicked on the image, at first, my first gut feeling, rightly or wrongly, was that he was being ironic. Do you know what I mean? That it was like a humorous, White Lives Matter is and all lives matter is bullshit. And look, do you know what I mean? I thought he was taking the piss. And it wasn't until I read into it more and until I watched that interview that I realized, no, he is just out there. But one of the things I wanted to talk about quickly as well is his mental health. I think I may have in that last episode in February said there's clearly he has it seems like he has some mental health issues, and he referred to that in this interview with Tucker and says, when people bash his mental health, it hurts his feelings. Which, wow, great insight there. But I'm not even sure. I do think he has some mental health issues, but I think more than anything, he just wants to be controversial. He just wants to get on Fox News. He just wants to get under people's skin. And is there an element of mental health problems there? I think so. But more than anything, he just is an idiot. And
the thing that's so great, you guys, is that the one thing I love about this show is that good or bad, Zoe and I are always genuine. And I'll tell you why. Because the mental health thing, she also talks about all in depth in that episode. And it's so just like I know she's going to talk about certain things, like literally I'm in the middle of editing and I say something and it was an allusion. It was Kanye West at the time was alluding to the fact that because Pete Davidson has a Hillary Clinton tattoo, that somehow he was in a sexual affair with Hillary Clinton. And I literally stopped the edit right there. And I'm like, what would I have said right now? And I was like, I immediately would have went into, I hope that they did. And she got some dick. I hit play. And sure enough, I'm like, well, I hope that happens. Like, I think she deserves a dick down from Pete Davidson. And I literally high-fived myself because I was like, yep, I called it. I knew what I would say, and sure enough, I delivered. And so when she says, I'm not really sure if we talk about the mental health, yes, you do, Zoe. You absolutely do, because that's what we do. And the thing that I think that is so funny is that the little bit of that I've read about the Tucker Carlson interview is that in the articles, they were accusing him, Kanye, of playing to white people, but then Kanye West also released on some social media platform a screen grab, which he did the entire time he was trying to get Kim back, and you'll listen to the episode and see. He does a screen grab of a text message between him and his dad, where his dad says, I loved the shirt. And he said something to the effect of like, thank you so much. He's like, what is it that you liked about it the most? Or what in particular did you like about it? And his dad replies that a black man is stating the obvious. And so then Kanye West exclaims it, because on the app, the iPhone, you can exclaim a comment or like a comment or heart a comment. So he does that to his text message. So Kanye West on a different tip says, haha, the joke's just like what to Zoe's point. Haha, the joke's on you.
Yeah.
It's not that controversial. I'm just saying the truth, and everybody is taking it and running with it. But then you take it to another level when you take it on any 24-hour news feed, whether it's CNN or, whatever. So, I mean, so he can just twist it however he wants to. But
he loves that too. That's what he likes to have all this controversy and the feuds because it keeps him relevant, as he thinks.
And in the February episode that you'll hear after this one ends, I talk about a lot of ways where he is similar to Trump.
His idol. I mean, his man crush.
Yeah. Anyway, that was our lightheaded, hearted take on.
I was lightheaded after I finished watching it.
Yeah.
To be honest.
Oh, your brains kind of leaked out your ear.
I had to lay down for a while.
Yeah. But it doesn't take much to get her to lay down. It really doesn't.
It really doesn't, especially for the right reasons.
Right. So make sure that you follow Finance is the Other F Word on all of the social media channels. My TikTok channels are FTOFW_podcast and Moment of Metal. If you are a metalhead and you want to hear me talk about metal that has nothing to do with finances, which is a nice break. And of course, my book, Finance is the Other F Word, blah, blah, blah. And Lily Lou Mittens on Instagram. And Zoe will be back in fold. And so we will have more stuff for you guys to come. I have a shift in my business that's coming, and we'll see how it plays out and hopefully get some more deep dive research for you guys coming. We appreciate you hanging in there. If you have any comments or feedback, you can email me at mel@financeistheotherfword.com. Make sure you please review us. I asked you this last time. I'm going to ask you again, and I hate asking for stuff, but just do it, please. Thank you. And with that, we're out this bitch.
Cheerio.
Thanks for listening. If you like us, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.